The Philadelphia 76ers have not reached the conference finals for 20 years. And if they don't play their cards right, this drought could last much longer. Because the foundations of the project are really shaky, and it seems that the patience of their superstar, Joel Embiid, may be reaching its limit. But if there's one thing that can resurrect the franchise, it's undoubtedly its coach. After Doc Rivers held the team's head coaching position for 3 seasons, in all of which he was eliminated in the second round of the playoffs, the Sixers have decided to dispense with his services, and his replacement has been the one desired by most Philadelphia fans. It is none other than Nick Nurse, who won the championship with the Toronto Raptors in 2019 in his debut season as a head coach. And after 5 seasons at the helm of the Canadian franchise, Nurse has moved on to a Philadelphia 76ers team in dire need of help. A coach completely opposite to Doc Rivers in many aspects. Rivers is a coach who is able to help players find their role, but whose ability to adjust during some playoff series has been called into question. His rotations are often predictable, and he is very immovable when it comes to inserting new talent into the team. For his part, Nurse is a coach who is known precisely for his ability to adjust and make unexpected rotations, placing players out of position on a regular basis. And this unpredictability is precisely his greatest virtue. However, it is true that Nurse had very versatile players who could occupy virtually any position on the court during his time in Toronto, and Philadelphia doesn't really have them. In fact, the Sixers were the 4th lowest-paced team in the entire league last season, behind only the Dallas Mavericks, Miami Heat, and Cleveland Cavaliers. And this is the result of having a center of Joel Embiid's talent on their team. A dominant center used to be the cornerstone of any franchise during basketball history. But nowadays, building around a center is not easy. The first reason is because it conditions the pace of play, forcing much more half-court offense. And that, unless you are the strangest center that has passed through the NBA, as in the case of Nikola Jokic, is not very compatible with today's basketball. And the second thing is that you have to find the right pieces to elevate his game. That's been the 76ers' problem for the past few seasons. It's true that Embiid has suffered plenty of injuries during the playoffs, but it's also true that his incredible dominance during the regular season is severely diminished when the postseason comes around. And while people may think that's the case, it's not just a case of choking. Coaches like Nick Nurse or Brad Stevens back in the day have always caused problems for Joel, outcoaching both Brett Brown and Doc Rivers. And they've found answers to curb his brute strength. But the problem, as we've said, is that it doesn't look like Nurse is going to have the pieces he needs to be able to feel comfortable at the position. The current James Harden situation makes it very difficult to forecast a roster that appears to be quite pessimistic compared to the team of other seasons. After his spat with GM Daryl Morey and his request to leave for the Los Angeles Clippers, the Sixers still don't know what players they will have at the start of the season. Joel Embiid will almost certainly be on the roster. Despite his disappointing performance in the playoffs, the Cameroonian is one of the 5 best players in the NBA, and he has been proving it for several seasons. During the regular season, he is simply unstoppable, so that could help a Sixers without Harden to get a good qualification for the playoffs. But despite Embiid's superiority, the rest of the team has to step up, somehow. Much of that responsibility will fall on Tyrese Maxey, the guard who fell all the way to 21st overall in the 2020 draft, and has become a key player in the Pennsylvania franchise's success. Maxey is entering his 4th season in the NBA and is the favorite player to win the Most Improved Player award according to the bookmakers. One of the fastest players in the NBA and one of the best three-point shooters in the entire league, who continues to increase his shooting volume season after season. The only flaw he has going into this Sixers team is that he is not a pure point guard. In fact, the player improved his performance when he started playing shooting guard consistently, getting more opportunities off the ball. And the third offensive reference available to the Sixers is Tobias Harris, a versatile player who is above average in many ways, but who also has not shown the determination needed to elevate a team. Harris is an efficient scorer, but Philadelphia fans are disappointed with his value for money when he signed a contract worth $180 million over 5 seasons that he has not really been able to justify. Two pieces that look like they will fit Nick Nurse's approach very well are Paul Reed and DeAnthony Melton. Basketball Paul is a fan favorite. But beyond that, he is a forward center with some very special skills, both on offense and defense, and one of the most versatile profiles for the current head coach. He has shown great progress in areas such as ball handling and outside shooting, and that has been the reason for Philadelphia to match the offer he received from the Utah Jazz during the last free agency. Melton, for his part, is a near-perfect role player. His only downside is that despite being an excellent defender, probably the Sixers' best on the perimeter, he is somewhat undersized at 6'3", so he may have some trouble against big guards. But he's a dedicated player with good outside shooting, who doesn't tend to make many mistakes on the court. But beyond that, the team doesn't have the best pieces. PJ Tucker's future is as up in the air as Harden's. After posting messages defending his teammate on social media and being in a plethora of trade rumors. A defensive profile who can occasionally be very useful, but at 38 years old, his performance should be declining. Dwayne Dedmon and Montrezl Harrell, who also just suffered a serious injury, proved they could not play consistent minutes due to their lack of defensive skills. And Mo Bamba comes in to try to fill those deficiencies. But he is not a player who has shown anywhere near the potential he was supposed to have when he was drafted. Also, the rookie who was stashed, Filip Petrusev, is going to make the jump to the NBA to prove his talent in the best league in the world. Another defensive piece that the Sixers will count on is Patrick Beverly. The guard coming from the Chicago Bulls is a known menace and will be able to perform some playmaking duties that will help Maxiell to have more opportunities off the ball. And to close the guard rotation, Nurse will have Jaden Springer, who is a 21-year-old player who has shown a great performance in the G League team, the Delaware Blue Coats, winning the finals of the competition during the last season. However, and despite the fact that the rotation of quality players is very short, we must not forget that James Harden is still a player of the Philadelphia 76ers. And with the new CBA situation, the player could have serious problems signing in the next free agency if he doesn't show up in training camp. For that reason, the Sixers should have two options: either continue to have his services or trade him to another team. After many rumors pointing to the Clippers as his preferred destination, players like Norman Powell or Terrence Mann could end up being part of Philadelphia's roster, which would undoubtedly improve the depth of their rotation. A very delicate situation in which the team will have to show that it has learned its lesson once and for all, and that it is capable of getting out of that mental block it has when the conference semifinals arrive. But in short, the Sixers' success depends on three main factors. The first is that Embiid is finally able to manage his minutes load to arrive in optimal shape for the playoffs. The second is that Nick Nurse is able to adapt quickly to his squad. And the last is that the James Harden squabble is resolved as soon as possible.